So before we get into the video, I just want you guys to remember this guy here. All right, that's going to be very important later on in the video.
Well, now let's look at this graph. This is how most people view success. A gradual increase in positive results until you reach your triumph. And this is what most people see. The achievements, the attainments, the success, especially in the world of social media. Now let's zoom out of this graph. Although this is a model, it's still a better representation of what it looks like in real life. There are ups and downs in our journey. We make mistakes and we fail, but then we pick ourselves up and we try again. It's totally fine. Without failures, there will be no growth or success, just like in our graph. Without the troughs, there would be no crest. This man has met idols from all walks of life and has worked with top organizations like Google, Harvard, Fox Studios, and many more. The same man has suffered a childhood brain injury, which has led to his learning disability. His nickname was the boy with the broken brain. He couldn't focus, concentrate, or remember anything, and it actually took him 3 extra more years to learn how to read. His real name is Jim Quick, and he created strategies how to dramatically enhance his performance.
There was once a point in his life when Jim wanted to quit school because he simply could not learn. To gain some perspective and to think things through, he went to a weekend getaway with his friend. That's when he engaged in a life-changing conversation with his friend's father. His friend's father asked him the one question that he was so afraid to hear. How is school? That's when Jim cried. He ranted about how he could not deal with his learning disabilities, his learning difficulties, with the pressure that has been built up. And when he kept ranting and ranting about how difficult it is to learn, his friend's father stopped him and asked him, Jim, what it is that you want to do? Who do you want to be? What do you want to share, learn, do, experience? Who do you want to grow into? That is when Jim was forced to sit down and write down all his dreams, fantasies, goals, without any limit. Just everything that he wanted to achieve in his life, he wrote it on a piece of paper. And when his friend's father looked over that list, he said, Jim, you're only this much away from achieving everything and more. And Jim looked at 20 centimeters, and he said, no, I would need 10 lifetimes and more to do everything that I want to. That's when his friend's father put his hands near his temples. The key is the mind, the brain. Since then, Jim Quick dedicated his life helping others to unleash their true genius, their true potential to live a life of prosperity and peace of mind. Jim is now a best-selling author of Limitless book series, as well as host of his podcast, Quick Brain, which is consistently rated #1 on iTunes. He likes to say that our biggest troubles and tumbles are our biggest teachers, and that we need to grow through what we go through. After all, isn't this what life is all about?
Hi everyone. A failure that stands out to me is one that's actually continuing. Over the lockdown, when I was back in the UK, golf was the only sport that anyone was allowed to play. And so I had a go. On the driving range, I was trying over and over again to hit that clean shot straight, and most of the time it would go there or over there. From trying over and over again and trying to overcome these repeated failures, I eventually found myself where I was able to play on a course. This, I think, was some reward for my persistence. In difficult circumstances, I was really able to get fit, get outside, and have a go, enjoying an activity with my friends. I think this was a failure that I'm definitely going to continue to try and overcome, and I think it's indicative of how you all should continue to try and get over any failures in school, at home, in tests, because I think this is a really important part of the learning process.
It's my pleasure to tell you a little bit of a story about personal failure. When I was a younger person, aged 12, my parents sent me away on an outdoor trip to Wales, and I had to do learning to climb on a rock face, and I'd never done that before, and I experienced some personal moments of terror with the fear of heights, but also managing to get myself stuck in the rock with my helmet caught in a crack. That didn't put me off in the end. I had encouragement from the instructors to get on and go further, and we learned how to abseil and to go off the cliff. And eventually the fear of heights began to diminish, and I began to enjoy climbing. Later in my time at school, I climbed as an activity, as a CCA, and then eventually did an expedition to the Indian Himalayas as well. So what started as a very scary experience became a much more enjoyable experience, and then a liberating experience. And that was down to the people who encouraged me and the way they said, you can do this if you really try. So I would commend failure to you as something that can actually help you to go forward.
It's not just great or famous people who face difficulties in this world. I'm sure that everyone who is watching this video may recall a difficult moment of their life when they were striving for a particular goal, but unfortunately not everything went as they wanted. Let me tell you my story, where I'd like to show you that due to persistence and constant work, you may move heaven and earth. So before I came to Haileybury, I really wanted to study at Republic Physics and Math School here in Almaty. Perhaps some of you have no idea what kind of school it is, but for me it was the most desirable place to study at that moment. And imagine, I applied 3 times, and guess what? I didn't manage to get in. Imagine, I applied 3 years in a row and I was not accepted. Yes, I was desperate, disappointed and irritated, as normally people are when they fail. Instantly I started thinking that only a few deserve study there, and mere mortals like me are not worthy to be there, and I will never be able to succeed anymore. After much thoughts and reflections, I decided to give the last ounce of my strength and apply for the last time. I promised myself that if I fail this time, I will stop. And after that promise, to be honest, I started working like a madman for a whole year. Every time when I got tired or demotivated, I just kept moving to look back at myself on the finish line to see if I succeeded or not. And I had a feeling that all my previous failures just fueled me and gave me strength to keep working, no matter what. Finally the X came. It was my 4th time trying to successfully write the test. And I didn't think about anything, I just came in, sat down and started writing the test. A month later, the results came. It was the most exciting moment of my life. And for my huge surprise, I finally did it. I got in, and I was head over heels filled with happiness. And I didn't know what to do and what to feel. To laugh, to rejoice, to cry, or just be silent. But one thing I understood for sure, that if you failed for the 1st time, for the 2nd time, or for the 100th time, in any case for the 101st time, you will succeed no matter what. As long as you believe in yourself and you don't give up on your first failure.
So in the beginning of the video, I showed you a picture of this guy here. And that's the thing about appearances. You see a tiny snapshot of someone's life without really knowing the full story. That man is David Goggins, and this is what he looked like when he was 19 years old. Now, looking at him, you might think, yeah, he's an average dude, but deep inside, David Goggins was struggling with anxiety, lack of self-appreciation, and fear. And what David Goggins feared the most was failure. So anytime, any activity that required any willpower or determination, he would just quit. And he blamed it on everything. He blamed it on his parents, his learning disability. It was always something else or someone else that caused him to fail. That's why he quit the Air Force, and that's why he ended up working as pest control at the age of 24. And every night, his dinner consisted of milkshakes and donuts. He was not happy with himself. One night, while watching a documentary on Navy SEALs, American Special Forces, something clicked inside his brain. He thought, just for a moment, what if I could be that guy? What if that guy on screen could be me? And that thought, that single idea that he could do it, was enough to motivate him. And from that point onwards, he realized one thing. He's already at rock bottom. So sink or swim, he's going to try and try again until he succeeds.
David would go on and fail Hell Week 2 times. Now, if anyone knows anything about Hell Week, it's one of the most brutal and grueling tests in the US military. 4 hours of sleep, barely any food and water, and constant running up and down hills and rough terrain for a week. However, David came back the third time, and that's when he succeeded. That is David Goggins' message. He would have considered himself to be a failure if he stopped after the second or even first try. What would make someone a failure is if they decided to stop trying, to stop failing. Because failure does not define us. What defines us is what we do after we make those mistakes. That is what separates winners and losers. We are all capable of being winners as long as we keep on failing. David Goggins, Jim Quick, Sanjar, and each and every one of us have gone through some hardships in our lives. We have to take every failure into our own advantage because these are the times that will shape us into who we really are. Dear students, take hold of every opportunity to learn, grow, put yourself out there. Make mistakes. Make a lot of them because happiness comes from the process, not reaching the destination.